National Park Service, I would like to welcome you all to Mount Rushmore National Memorial. I am Ranger Marie. I have a list of safety information and announcements that I am required to make by management. So here goes. If you have not paid for parking, and I apologize that you have to hear this again, there are numerous places to do so. You can pay in person in the gift shop. They will be open until 9:30, so you have time after the program to pay there if you haven't already. There are kiosks located through the property as you walk down the avenue of flags. You'll see one outside the gift shop, one outside the cafe, and there's several of them underneath the pergolas that you first came through when you entered the property. And on each level of the parking garage by the stairs, except for the top level, you will find a kiosk there as well. Again, if you need a park ranger during this evening's ceremony, you can find one in the visitor center. It is pretty dark out here, and it's not going to get any darker, but we want you to keep track of all of your personal possessions, especially those children of yours.
That's a possession.
If you plan to separate from your group, and you plan to reconnect with them, then please designate a time and a location to do so you can find each other after the program. I don't think it's going to get any more crowded than it is right now.
Cool.
If you are feeling a little crowded, there's plenty of space down here in the front. If you're a veteran or active duty military or an Gold Star family, I'm only going to invite you to the stage later, so you can move on down now if you want. But we want you to please be courteous to your fellow visitor before, during, and after the program. Again, we want to thank you in advance for obeying the speed limit on your way home, as there will be lots of people exiting the parking garage, and there may be some critters on the road.
Oh.
And we wish for those critters to get home safely to their families, as we wish for you to get home safely to yours. We want to especially thank the Mount Rushmore Society for their support of this program and the memorial. Without their support, many of these programs would not be possible. Again, the Mount Rushmore Society are the people that run the bookstores here. They are considered our nonprofit partner. And of course, there is a bookstore located right behind you in the visitor center. On with the evening's program. It will begin promptly at 8 p.m. with a 10-minute Ranger Talk by me, Ranger Marie. Again, my program is on liberty, freedom, and my American story. It will be followed by the movie Freedom, America's Lasting Legacy. Towards the end of the movie, again, I will press that magic button and illuminate the sculpture. You will then be asked to stand and sing our national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner. After the movie is over, I will invite all active duty military, veterans, Gold Star families that have lost a loved one during service to come down to the stage. I will ask for volunteers to help me retrieve and fold the flag, and then we will all show our appreciation for those men and women of the military for their service and their sacrifice. So we still have a few minutes before the program begins. I'm going to see if I can play just one more song of patriotic music, and then I'll be out promptly at 8. Thank you.
I'm glad she didn't take questions because I think it'd be hard like, hey!
Yeah.
Got a question.
There's getting more and more stars out.
I was going to say. Some seats down
Very well. It's the effort that counts.
How many times is the Big Dipper going to be like right over that mountain?
Well, that's true.
I don't know.
Yeah,
That's pretty amazing.
that is.
I mean, it's like it just fits perfectly where it is.
Yeah.
It's all right. That's okay. That's okay. Don't worry. It's safe. My step.
Oh, it is, yeah. I was going to do that ice cream, but the line was too big. No, it isn't fun. I can wait.
Liberty, one of our most precious rights. But what does liberty really mean? Liberty gives you the right to be free to do something, to live where you wish and go where you want. Liberty allows you to pursue your religious beliefs and to follow your political views. In 1775, Patrick Henry signaled the coming revolution, imploring, "Give me liberty or give me death." 1 year later, the words, "Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness," written by Thomas Jefferson, were forever embedded into our Declaration of Independence. George Washington predicted liberty, when it begins to take root, will be a plant of rapid growth. In 1831, Samuel Francis Smith expounded the virtues of our unalienable rights when he wrote the lyrics to America. "My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, let freedom ring." Little did Abraham Lincoln know how relevant his words would be today when he was quoted as saying, "Don't interfere with anything in the Constitution. That must be maintained, for it is our only safeguard of our liberties." Liberty is a form of freedom. Freedom is the power or right to act, think, or speak as one wants without hindrance or restraint. Again, Abraham Lincoln's words, ever so true today: America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves.
Yep.
He also said, those who deny freedoms to others deserve it not for themselves. George Washington sounded his concern when he said, if freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led like the sheep to slaughter. It was Ronald Reagan, though, who summed it up best. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in their bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day, we may spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States where men were free. Freedom does not come without a price. America is the home of the free because of the brave, both the living and the dead. Again, Abraham Lincoln. A nation that does not honor its heroes will not long endure. He also said, deeds, not words. And we all know that actions speak louder than words. Theodore Roosevelt, well, he had a slightly different take when he was quoted as saying, dreams are a dime a dozen. It's their execution that counts. And it is because of these liberties and freedoms I have the privilege of sharing my American story with you. All four of my grandparents came to this country in the early 1900s.
Wow.
2 came from Italy and 2 came from the British Isles. They traveled as teenagers by themselves in steerage class. All had heard that America offered freedoms and liberties not available to them in their birth countries. They sailed into the New York harbor and saw that icon of freedom, the Statue of Liberty. Processed at Ellis Island, they each individually went on to assimilate into that great melting pot called America. Not too long after both of my grandfathers arrived in this country, they were drafted in the military during World War I. Due to their service, they earned their citizenship. All eventually got married, had children and grandchildren, and that's where I come in. I never got a chance to know either one of my grandfathers, as they both had passed before I was born. I did, however, have the great honor and privilege of spending an awful lot of time in the company of my Italian grandmother. Now, we never talked very much. I assisted her while observing and learning. When the chores were done, we'd watch shows on her 14-inch black and white television. It was in her living room that I saw President John F. Kennedy give his inaugural speech, and will always remember his words. Don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. We watched Martin Luther King give his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. And we watched silently together as President John F. Kennedy's funeral procession proceeded to Arlington's National Cemetery. I remember all too well my grandmother crying, and I also began to cry, even though I didn't really know what was going on. All I knew was that she was terribly sad and upset. Years later, while studying Italian in college, I innocently asked my grandmother why she never spoke Italian to her children, my aunts, my uncle, and my mother. While she reeled around from that kitchen sink and sternly told me in her broken English, "They are not Italian. They are American. They speak English."
Yeah.
Trust me, I knew better than to question my grandmother further. So for once in my life, I was without words. 2 years later, upon graduating from college, I treated myself to a bus tour vacation. It was here at Mount Rushmore, staring up at the four great forefathers, Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln. I finally understood what my grandmother meant about being an American. Forged purely by nature, perfected by man, Mount Rushmore is seen internationally as the shrine of democracy. Little did I know that my grandmother, with only a 6th grade education, would have such profound knowledge of what it means to be an American. Yes, she was Italian by birth and heritage, but in her heart and in her soul, she was American through and through. And I know that if my grandmother were alive today, I am sure she would agree that to heal America, all you need to do is love America. My grandmother did, and so do I.
I see the Milky Way today.
The United States of America. It's hard to imagine, but not long ago, this great land of ours was pure wilderness. A place where millions of bison roamed freely throughout the plains. And those who lived off the land revered it as sacred ground. face a dramatic change, quickly becoming the most advanced nation in the world, in technology, in peace, and in power. From its inception, the United States has shaped itself under the guidance of strong leaders who have taken risks, stood up to adversity, and never let go of their vision for a better country. Mount Rushmore reminds us of it, and the countless Americans who have made great sacrifices to ensure a lasting legacy of our country. Freedom. We strived for it, we died for it, we live for it. The year was 1923. The place, the Black Hills of South Dakota. State historian Don Robinson proposed that these granite outcroppings could be the site of an enormous monument dedicated to the heroes of the West, such as Lewis and Clark and Chief Red Cloud. But commissioned sculptor Gutzon Borglum had a different concept in mind. Borglum was a passionately patriotic man, and believed that a more fitting tribute should honor the American experience. A memorial that would represent our ideals, our dreams, and our accomplishments as a country. A memorial that would convey a spirit of patriotism. Borglum chose his canvas carefully. The giant granite rock face of Mount Rushmore. And in 1927, work on the mountain began. Borglum assembled a team of local miners, ranchers, and lumbermen to help with construction. The sculptor built a model of the presidents to serve as guide. Every inch of the model represented 1 foot on the mountain. Year after year, Borglum and his crew hung tirelessly on the side of the mountain, drilling and blasting their way to reach granite solid enough for carving. It took 14 years and nearly $1 million to complete the 4 60-foot faces. And even though the sculptor did not live to see the very final touches put into place, he was able to carry out his vision. 4 great Americans immortalized in stone, symbolizing the democratic society in which we live, the struggle for our independence, the fight for our freedom, and the sacrifices we have made since our country began more than 200 years ago. It was a time of rebellion and of war. It began as an uprising against British rule and turned into a full-fledged crusade for personal freedom and national independence. The American Revolution. From 1775 to 1783, up to 250,000 patriots engaged in battle. Even during the toughest times, when the Continental Army seemed undisciplined and ill-equipped, one man's courage and determination ultimately led the troops to victory over the British. The future father of our country, George Washington. Born and raised in colonial Virginia, George Washington grew up to be a firm believer in American independence. Even though his heart yearned for quiet family life at his Mount Vernon home, his deep commitment to the Republic made him answer the call of his country time and time again. As general, Washington became an instant hero throughout the colonies. The public was so enamored with him that many people wished that he become king. But Washington scoffed at such an idea.
The army must serve the country, but not rule it. Express your utmost horror and detestation of the man who wishes to overturn the liberties of our country. George Washington, 1783.
It was this kind of insight and integrity that made him the perfect person to oversee the creation of a new federal government. With no blueprint to follow, Washington kept the colonies united and on course during the infant years of his nation. And after ratification of the Constitution, when he was unanimously elected first President of the United States, Washington was keenly aware that he was laying down the framework for future presidents to follow. Washington's legacy is that of a man who was first in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen. In his inaugural address, he spoke of the task that lay before this new nation.
The preservation of the sacred fire of liberty and the destiny of the Republican model of government are justly considered as deeply, perhaps as finally stable, on the experiment entrusted to the hands of the American people. George Washington, 1789.
George Washington welded this union, but it would take another great visionary to expand it. Thomas Jefferson, third President of the United States.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thomas Jefferson, 1776.
Thomas Jefferson was the voice of the American people, inspiring patriots with his carefully crafted words written in the Declaration of Independence, the document that gave birth to our nation. It was also Jefferson who fought for religious freedom and the democratic notion that people should have a say in government, two very American principles we cherish today. Thomas Jefferson always thought of himself more as a scientist or scholar than as a politician. And it was this quest for knowledge that played a role in the greatest achievement of his presidency. In 1803, Jefferson acquired the French lands west of the Mississippi in the Louisiana Purchase, which doubled the size of the country. In an effort to find out what America now owned, Jefferson sent Meriwether Lewis and William Clark for their famous expedition out west. It was an exciting time of discovery for new Americans. However, what was good for a growing nation was not necessarily good for its original inhabitants. During this time of expansion, many Native Americans were uprooted from their homes and hunting grounds and pushed farther west. But during an address to a group of Cherokee chiefs, Jefferson prophesied about future relations between natives and new settlers.
I shall rejoice to see the day when the red men, our neighbors, become truly one people with us, enjoying all the rights and privileges we do, and living in peace and plenty as we do, without anyone to make them afraid, to injure their persons or take their property, without being punished for it according to fixed laws. Thomas Jefferson, 1808.
Jefferson's dream was slow to be realized as conflicts between the U.S. government and Native Americans set off a chain of events that dramatically reduced Native populations throughout the 19th century. Thomas Jefferson believed in the promise of America and had faith in the American people. But this faith would truly be tested nearly 60 years later, when the Republic came dangerously close to unraveling. The Civil War was the most tumultuous period in American history. The differences between the states had deeply divided the nation, pitting brother against brother on American soil. But it was the determination of one man to keep the United States united. Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president. Abraham Lincoln was a self-made man of great character, a frontiersman who came from humble beginnings. When Lincoln was inaugurated in 1861, he faced more adversity than any other president in U.S. history. Many southern states had withdrawn from the Union. And even though Lincoln opposed war, he warned the South in his inaugural address that he would take whatever measures necessary to stop the rebellion.
In your hands, my dissatisfied fellow countrymen, and not in mine, is the momentous issue of civil war. The government will not assail you. You have no oath registered in heaven to destroy the government, while I shall have the most solemn one, to preserve, protect, and defend it. Abraham Lincoln, 1861.
The Civil War raged on for 4 brutal years. But Lincoln stuck to his commitment to democracy. His main objective was to save the Union, and he also strongly believed in freedom for all Americans. Until slavery was abolished, Lincoln felt the U.S. could never truly be the home of the free. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation began the process that ended the evils of slavery forever. Over 500,000 Union and Confederate soldiers lost their lives in the Civil War. But during his famous Gettysburg Address, Lincoln reminded the American people what this war was really all about.
That we here highly resolve that these dead should not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that this government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln, 1863.
Over the next 50 years, the United States would go through a dramatic transformation. The year 1900 was coming around then, and America was turning from a rural republic to a budding industrial power. It was clear that this new century, which burst with hope, needed a fresh start and a fresh approach. It was Theodore Roosevelt, our 26th president, who led the way.
Is America a weakling? To shrink from the work of the great world powers? No! The young giant of the West stands on a continent and clasps the crest of an ocean in either hand. Our nation, glorious in youth and strength, looks into the future with eager eyes and rejoices as a strong man to run a race. Theodore Roosevelt, 1897.
He was energetic, he was robust, and he was eager to show the world that America was a force to be reckoned with. Theodore Roosevelt believed in the sinless life. Frail and sickly as a young boy, he overcame his illnesses and grew up to be a naturalist, a cowboy, a war hero, an author, and President of the United States by the young age of 42. His vigorous outlook on life transferred to the Oval Office. Roosevelt was a man of action. He promoted economic freedom and was a friend to the working class, protecting their rights against big business and what he called the criminal rich. Roosevelt also expanded the country's power abroad. It was his support of the 1903 revolution in Panama that led the U.S. to acquire territory for the construction of the Panama Canal. This massive undertaking not only created a valuable link between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, but it put the United States on the map in world politics. Yet, Roosevelt may be known best for his passion for the outdoors. He was vocal about conservation, and through the power of his presidency, he provided federal protection for almost 230 million acres of land.
To waste, to destroy our natural resources, to skin and exhaust the land instead of using it so as to increase its usefulness, will result in undermining in the days of our children the very prosperity which we ought by right to hand down to them amplified and developed. Theodore Roosevelt, 1907.
The pursuit of the American dream did not end with Theodore Roosevelt's term. Instead, it has carried us into the 21st century. Throughout history, countless Americans have made great sacrifices so that we can enjoy the freedoms of this land.
Everything we have to give. I have a dream today. Not what your country can do for you.
The same freedoms guaranteed in our Constitution and Bill of Rights. The same freedoms millions of people have sought since the first immigrants arrived over 200 years ago. Gutzon Borglum reminds us of this with his timeless memorial. 4 Americans representing the birth, growth, preservation, and development of this country. All embodying the spirit of our nation. All advocates of freedom, dignity, and the ideals of American life.
Oh, beautiful, for spacious lands, forever waves of green, for purple mountains, majesties above the fruited plain.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and join in singing America's national anthem.
You see, turn the dancing light,
out the day for you. Out the twilights was sleepy. To the stars and the stars. To the rainbow of the sky. Let the birds of sweet birds. Birds of heaven praise me. Don't you like it, sweet birds of the thirsty river? People don't know I died. That afraid you're still there. Oh, say that stands a simple banner your head. Of the land of the free and the world of the brave.哎，给你看，
哦，跟石头猫的一样，也有那个晚上的。
对，也有，比那个好多了。
好吧，我们去再看吧。
好。
At this time, I would like to invite all military personnel, both past and present, down to the stage. I also invite Gold Star families who have lost a loved one in the service. If you are unable to come down to the stage, please send someone to represent you. Come on, don't be shy. Is that everyone? Yes? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we're going to retire the colors for the evening. So ladies and gents, I need 6 or 7 volunteers. So please step forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, wait a second here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. That's very cool. Here we come. It is. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, of those on stage tonight, some are currently serving our nation, some have served previously, and some have lost a loved one in the service. We have invited them all on stage tonight to publicly recognize the sacrifices they have made and to thank them for their dedication to our nation. Before they rejoin their families and their friends, let us show them our appreciation for their service one more time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are the nation of the free because of the brave. And it is because of you and your service and your sacrifice to this country that we can do what we do here with our liberties and freedoms. We are a nation that honors our heroes. Thank you so much. Have a good evening and drive safe going home. Thank you.
Safe travels.
Thank you. Yeah.